But yeah.
Evening guys, how we doing? I'm in Zen HQ tonight. We've got Mr. Fox, Craig behind the camera. We've got George.
Hi everyone.
And Danny.
Hi all.
And myself. Foz has been with us earlier. We've had a bit of a coach education evening, get together. We're all going out for a curry later together, so it's a bit of a team bonding thing tonight. But it's an ongoing, we're always developing our knowledge and sharing. So
Don't show them this is insider stuff.
oh, that's don't show them the the nuts and bolts of our workings out. Sam's not with us tonight, couldn't make it unfortunately, but he'll be here on another Q&A. But you might have noticed tonight there wasn't a video. We've had some issues, namely me tipping a cup of coffee on Robin's laptop. So I slapped wrist. So I basically knackered the old MacBook, and so we couldn't get a video out tonight. So couldn't get it edited in time to just do the finishings, ready to post it. So we thought we'd do a Q&A. So if you've got any questions for myself and the team, we've got the pressure plate on tonight, and got 3D as well. So 3D, we're not going to go into full body 3D, but tracking hand path, tracking club centre of mass, looking at maybe some pressure data. We've been doing it with Danny, we can maybe talk a little bit about that. Talking about lag and things like that. But yeah, look, it's endless what we can talk about, but we want to hear from you guys. So if you've got any questions, let us know. Just fire a comment.
Can you see?
Yeah, Darren Byrne said, "How do I become a part of this team?" Invite.
It is a fair question.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll pass you that question.
Well, yeah, it's in the post.
Yeah, so guys, you got any questions? Yeah, fire them in. CJ Highlight said, "Any chance of a teaching trip in the US?"
Yeah, absolutely. We have got plans to come over to the US.
There's a significant danger of that happening.
GRF Travel Club.
Exactly, yeah. We're going to Turkey next month again, so that's going to be posted live, public, in the next few days. It was going to go out today live, officially. So 26th of March, we're out in Turkey, 5 nights, 4 days, with myself, Foz, George, Sam and Belty. 12 places available, and yeah, the trips we've had so far have been brilliant, amazing testimonials from the guys, brilliant successes, and we've been so happy, and it's getting better all the time. So we've only run 2 international ones, and so we're looking forward to our next one in Turkey again. We were so impressed with the venue, we're going back again, and yeah, looking forward to that.
Here, good question here from Adam Smith. Thoughts on keeping the lead arm straight? Is it necessary? Is it a necessity?
Is it a necessity? Well, bluntly, no. But essentially, it's the same. I mean, I would liken that to if you're right-handed. In fact, no, I won't take a tennis ball. I'll take some balls. So if you're right-handed, I'm just going to use the mat, guys. If you're right-handed and take your lead arm, left hand, okay, and throw a ball backhanded into the ground, what do you notice about your left arm? What does it do as you start to ramp up the speed and let it go? It kind of straightens itself, really. You're not actually thinking about that. Now, that's the same on the way back. Okay, so if I was to stand here, throw a ball that way, just letting it swing from the shoulder, notice the action, the forces I'm utilising to swing the ball are actually naturally extending the arm, but without any active tension, so it's passive tensioning. It's forces reacting to the pivot. Your body's a big pivot, this is a pivot as well, so it's kind of the body's pivoting, this is pivoting, and this basically inertia of the club will extend the arm out. So if you're using your body efficiently, you'll probably find that your arm just kind of organises itself.
It's a good question, isn't it? Because it's a very common kind of thought, isn't it, or kind of said between golfers on a tee box and stuff like this. Oh, left arm straight, head
It's
still.
all a head down job, isn't it? So
But it's interesting because what you were just describing there is essentially it's a kind of generally a natural part. It comes from a natural movement.
yes,
And so it's kind of people looking through maybe the wrong end of the telescope and saying, well, because his arm, this ex-good golfer's arm is straight in his backswing, then we
Yes.
must all try and keep our arms straight in the backswing. It's almost like conspiracy theories. There is some kind of element of truth somewhere. Right?
yes.
So it's one of those, isn't it, where it's kind of like wrong end of the telescope, really.
Yeah, I mean it's a lever system. It's exactly. So if I take that club for example, the thing about the backswing, it's not the same forces as the through swing, downswing and through swing. So you're naturally going to get centre of masses lining up at some point as you accelerate and swing out. They're going to line up. Okay, so this way, like when I threw the ball backhanded, this arm's going to extend naturally. Okay, on the backswing, it's slower. And it's easier to control because we've been taught to kind of control it with our arms, and it's a one-piece takeaway. And it's absolutely not a one-piece takeaway, but we've been taught as a one-piece takeaway. It's been a more kind of deliberate action where we're actively tensioning to swing the golf club. But if we actually tap into forces from the ground, as opposed to trying to create them through the core and activate through the shoulders, if we start to use the ground, we can actually accelerate the action, the sequence, much earlier. And we get this natural, if you like, this throwaway, where suddenly you're going to get this natural mass lining up and on its way to loading the lever. So it's kind of really the force is it's been applied outwardly and at speed. So it's very much a force velocity thing. We're trying to create high force, high velocity over a short period of time. And when you do that, you suddenly propel the mass, and it's this mass, this centre of mass, that ultimately is straightening the arm through which is passively tensioned. It's reacting to the pivot forces and the inertia of the club. So what you're actually getting is just a natural extension or maintaining of that extension, if you like. If you're feeling or you're focused on trying to keep a straight left arm, you're actually applying complete unnecessary tension into the system, which is inertia on the body. So you're actually making it harder to pivot the body. So it's like trying to throw a ball with a stiff arm is now affecting the rotation of the body. That's going to affect how you use the ground, because now when you want to move, if you're initiating moving the body with the centre of mass, essentially your centre of pressure ain't going to shift much because it's trying to stabilise to let the mass move, and it's trying to maintain overall dynamic stability. We've got a problem basically with power. So once you start trying to control the end of the club, it's a bit, you can start to essentially turning the dial down on your speed.
That's what I meant about looking through the wrong end of the telescope. It's passive. It's a passive tensioning in response to effective movement, as opposed to something that you are actively trying to achieve and focusing on and forming part of your intention around.
Because are you moving mass or moving pressure? So we've had a part of our chat tonight was layering up processes that we look at as coaches and looking at centre of mass movement and centre of pressure movement. So does a person have to move, do they move their mass to move pressure, or do they move pressure to move mass? Somebody who's loading the system, thinking about moving their arms, is actually thinking about essentially moving mass here, and then now this pressure is reacting to this movement of the mass. So now centre of pressure isn't really being used in the most functional way to generate the actual free-flowing movement with the body, the actual pivot with the body, and the, if you like, the natural swing of the club. So it's recognising the forces from the ground and being able to use the body to transfer them. That's going to keep your left arm straight.
All right, here's one for you, Danny. Is a fairway wood swing off the deck more like a driver swing or an iron swing?
Well, I mean, once you're playing the ball off the floor, it's a totally different swing compared to anything else. So when we're playing the driver, because the ball's already in the air, that has a different swing arc, totally different swing to something that's off the floor.
Come on, Danny.
It's on the deck. We have high draw off the deck.
with an extra stiff shaft.
If anyone-
I'll just knock it down to 60.
If anyone can do it, it's Danny. They call him Smooth Swing Danny.
What you're going to need to be, just be careful with this.
Have a practice.
So using a driver off the deck as opposed to off the tee.
Well, no, the question was, let me just get it up again. Is a fairway wood swing off the deck more like a driver swing or an iron swing?
What's the clearance down?
So I think he means, is it shallow or steep
Yeah.
off the
So,
deck?
Yeah, fairway wood off the floor. We want a slightly steeper swing just so we can get that feeling of the contact on the floor, more of a divot, as opposed to a driver swing. We're swinging more up. So try with this driver.
Yeah, just have a practice.
Yeah, there's loads of room, loads.
You're in-
Oh,
you're in-
three first.
You're in for a
So
treat.
silky, this swing.
You're in for a treat here, guys. Oh,
Oh,
oh, Danny!
that's my shaft. It's too strong for it.
It's like a poker.
You've got to be a man to use that shaft.
It is. It's a different ball.
Well, you've got Siwoo Kim is a master of the driver off the deck, and he takes little divots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has actually got downward angle of attack.
The average, I think, I don't know if it's changed now, but with TrackMan, the average downward angle of attack on a driver was about minus 1.5 on top of the loft. So contrary to what people believe about going up, look, you are going to potentially increase your distance. I mean, your McElroys and guys are getting 4 or 5 degrees up, maximising their launch by minimising the spin and getting the maximum out of the driver. That is the way to do it. I think for the average golfer, if you can get your dynamic, if you can get your angle of attack up, and you're with a dynamic loft of about, say, between, I don't know, like 14, 15, 16 degrees with a spin rate down, I think the optimal is like 2,500. So generally hitting up, but without increasing dynamic loft, that is the key to distance. If I was to say there's one thing you need to focus on, and it's kind of being able to hit up. So hitting up on a golf ball, but the dynamic loft is actually down, not hitting up doing that. Because you're hitting up, but you're increasing dynamic loft. You're increasing essentially what the TrackMan calls spin loft. So essentially the spin rate, because your dynamic loft's gone up, and now you're just spinning the ball up. And so, yes, you're going to be hitting it up, but your distance is going to come back, potentially. So you're not going to get the ball speed that you want. Being able to decrease the dynamic loft on the up will get your ball speed up.
What was the original question? It was versus
Have a
on
different
the
swing
tee
with a
peg,
fairway
yeah.
wood,
Is it, do you swing differently with a fairway wood off the deck?
Short answer,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the explanation of that is a more negative angle of attack if you're hitting it off the deck to get a bit of a launch, whereas when obviously off the tee peg you've already got something giving you a helping hand and you can.
It's also the way it lies as well. The shaft angle is different.
Yeah.
Generally, irons, hybrids, fairway woods, I mean, progressively as you go towards irons are round and down, and
Yeah,
woods,
look at it like
your driver is round and up. So, driver's round and up. Look at the difference in lie angles. This is off a tee peg, that's round and up. These are round, when I say round, I mean round and out and down. And this is round and out and up. It's very, very different. But with a dynamic loft, we're trying to keep down as opposed to.
I think there's a video on the channel, Driver in the Wind.
Yes.
It's
Oh, with Foz.
It's
Yes.
Foz.
Yes.
That's what to go and find.
Yeah.
Driver in the Wind. It was
Yeah.
probably about 6 months ago.
Yeah, have a look for that one,
Summer of
guys.
2021.
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah, I would say if you're anything you're hitting off the floor, you want to hit the floor. Anything you're not hitting, you're hitting off a tee, you don't want to be hitting the floor. So just get that feeling of what a swing feels like when the ball's on a tee, what a swing feels like when the ball's on the floor. Totally different swing, totally.
And then
Every club in the bag.
and those are going to play.
Yeah.
You're going to have a different path.
If
You
I
can put the
so-
same swing driver on the deck plus the same swing driver off a tee peg. You can have two different
Yeah.
paths.
So tonight we did something with the 3D. Well, just if you can see this. So we put a sensor on the golf club, sensor on the arm. We've got the centre of mass of the golf club. So that's the side-on view. Centre of mass there of the golf club is it's kind of outside the golf club because of the club head mass. So you've got centre of mass and you've got the wrist, if you like, lead arm and wrist. If we go here, what you'll notice is the hand path when this was Danny earlier. So swinging up, there's the hand path on the way back. On the way down, okay, these hand paths kind of match. It's kind of the downswing slightly inside, if you like. Danny's swinging that way as a right-hander. if you like, that's a little bit early. Okay, so that Danny was doing that intentionally, of course. So that's slightly early, and that's going to be shallower. If you move that red arc further away from the blue, essentially what you're doing now is you've got a more downward strike, and you've got a later strike, a later hit. So by moving that downward hand path further to the closer to the target, and then let go, you're going to get a steeper angle of attack. So that's more conducive to striking down, reducing that loft with an iron. Okay, with a wood or a fairway wood or a hybrid, that kind of hand path is going to be more conducive for the delivery you want for those clubs. They're a bit shallower, so you can think about the hand path. So we're keeping this more kind of end of the chain focus, more external, kind of, if you like, as close to the club as possible, not internalising it. So if this was a backswing, you've got your hand path going up, and then you've got your hand path going down. And so what we want to do is kind of get that hand path essentially shifting. We want that gap between the two for your irons. Okay, so think about, if you can visualise maybe the kind of arc your hands are making, a trace in the sky, and even use a mirror in front. I mean, that's a good use of a mirror, I would say, is to trace. Imagine you tracing your hand path back and through, just doing some half, three-quarter swings. How does your body need to move to actually shift that hand path? And if you, this is not some kind of shameless advertising, but
Plug.
you don't have to use. You could use a piece of wood across a golf club, just one of the teeter top boards, but obviously this is using a GRF with the rails means we're pushing it a bit more, using the ground. But to get that hand path, that straight away brings my hand path in. So now, without even trying, I've got a steeper angle of attack, which is going to be so much better for your irons than your fairway woods. We're still going to be shifting with the fairway woods, but there's going to be a difference in the width of the hand path and the time on it. So separating driver, I would say, or fairway woods from irons, I would go first to irons and get that hand path shifting that way.
I'm sure PGA Tour will have some good examples of that on their YouTube channel, because you see that all the time in PGA Tour coverage when they're arcing, using shot tracer type technology to trace where targets and handcuffs.
Yeah.
So maybe get a McIlroy irons versus driver or something like that.
That would be a really good use of watching YouTube videos. I would say.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with looking at golf. He's not trying to mirror them or match them, and if you can copy them to McIlroy, then
Picking out some characteristics.
I'll tell you for you.
But, can alter.
Just looking at what common denominators between what really good players do. It's like you're looking at functional movement and just picking out things that you could try, which are actually not that contrived and detailed and kind of technical, if you like. You're just thinking about how you're moving through space and letting your body organise itself to move through space in a way that's a little bit more recognisable and a bit more, if you like, conducive for the club and the shot you want to play.
Because what was interesting is you're not moving, what you were showing viewers on the DRF there is how to move your hand path without moving your hand path.
Exactly.
Right, you're not moving your hands actively, they are moving passively in response to what you're doing with your body.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a great question here, and it's actually something I thought about recently. Some tour pros have a very slow and deliberate backswing, Morikawa, Matsuyama. They don't throw the club back in the backswing. It seems that that's a potential loss of energy. How do you guys see that? As in throwing the club back.
Yeah. I mean, look,
They
there's no
see them as very different kettles of fish
There's no
than your
right or
average
wrong.
handicap golfer.
exactly. What they are doing, what you will notice about those guys, is there's still like a passiveness to the swing, a softness. That it's not under high tension. The average guy who swings back slow is kind of quite deliberate, and it's really under tension. These guys, if you watch how smooth, and what they're actually doing, they're just getting themselves in place, if you like. They've created a mechanical advantage for that change of direction when they really start to tap into the dynamic elements of the swing. They're just really good at creating those forces later.
Yeah, and Matsuyama, I think it's the longer the club, the bigger the pause.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, pause. I don't think he actually ever stops moving, but it appears that way. I think he does it less and less now. He's kind of moved away from it a bit, or his golf swing has developed to a point where it's not so obvious. But what you really notice, especially when I was watching him a few years ago, is, like you said, when they are in that change of direction, it's so athletic still. And actually, I think he does carry on going that way. He almost pauses and then goes that way to go the other way.
There's a separation taking place, it's just happening later and it's happening faster. It's like that, and then they really do separate later on. So there's that transition of the golf swing, if you like, happens later, and it's so dynamic that they create the stretch reflex in time, and they're just they're doing it just it just looks different, but actually if you use 3D, they're creating similar function, but just doing it at a different time in a slightly different space.
And they probably, you know, it's features of their sort of characteristics of their swing that have been there since they were small kids.
Yeah.
So it's just something that they've always done, and that's how they swing a golf club.
I mean, it's the backswing is just the preparation phase. So, but we as regular golfers, okay, we want to find or use a method that is kind of not going to require 8 hours of practice or 10 hours or a lifetime of practice to actually perfect. And these guys have had these swings, I guess, since they were young, and they've perfected their own motions. We're still trying, if you like, find our golf swing. They've already kind of found their golf swing. They found their golf swing really on, and they fine-tuned it throughout their life. We're still trying to find our golf swing. A lot of us find our best way of doing it because we've not actually hit yet the kind of performance levels we desire to, or we believe we can. So we're still on that journey. So we've got to find motions that are kind of easier to tap into, with less practice, less athleticism, less. I mean, we're not comparing apples with apples. That's the thing. So
they're finely tuned racehorses, and we're the pony in the muddy field at the end of the road.
Yeah, I am for sure. So the latter, but yeah. So it's kind of just there's common denominators with these swings, but don't delve too deep into the technical, because I think you can be trying to model your golf swing on somebody who's got quite we're all unique. So it's kind of, we can learn, but try not to kind of take it to the nth degree, and you could be looking at features of a golf swing, and you could be reading too much into certain movements and patterns, which are actually, that's not what makes them the player they are, to be honest.
I mean, you could almost say the same about Matt Wolf, kind of takeaway and looping it down on the inside and stuff. It's like, okay, great, he's probably done it for a long time, he's so in control of what he does, you know, we're probably as not tour level golfers, probably not going to start doing that. We may as well just put a club kind of where we want it to go, rather than rerouting it unnecessarily.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
It's just another sort of quirky characteristic of the swing, isn't it?
Good question from Johannes Grossen. Firstly, just received his GRF system. Thank you, Johannes.
Thanks, Johannes. Appreciate it.
I've trouble, so I guess you could use the GRF system to show him this. I have trouble swinging to the right. What exercises should I focus on to start that, to help me get that correct? Is currently swinging far too much to the left.
Okay, so it's generally recognising the timing and the movement of your body mass. When the club's behind you, it needs to be behind to follow. So. I mean, I'll let one of you guys,
Let's get a little bit of a demonstration going.
Use a stick, swing direction, but use the stick as the musher.
Yeah.
On a GLO.
Best use for an alignment stick, this, guys.
I'll let yours take it.
It's actually a plastic stick that some people use for alignment. Yeah, so I think about swing direction, because there is a lot of people go with swing direction. This is what I see. I guess you guys do as well, when people come for lessons and they've watched videos and kind of, seen people who are coming in, slicing it and hitting some kind of weak fades, and we're encouraging a swing direction more to the right and this sort of thing, that they are thinking about the club head doing it, and kind of, I think Marcus uses the phrase that I style, fishing for it, right? Kind of fishing the club head out to the right. And it depends on the mechanism they're using to do that, of course, but often what they compromise is kind of strike. With that, they're not able to get their low point far forward enough with a swing direction to the right. So a good one to do is, if you've got a musher, brilliant, but it's unlikely. So take a plastic stick that bends, and some people use it for alignment. And you can make an arc like this.
We are in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a different form.
And on a GRF, as Marcus said, it's about recognising alignment or where different body parts are in space whilst the club is behind you. And so you can use this to rotate and then start to bring in a shift and rotate and shift and rotate, and recognising in what direction you're shifting to help influence a change in your swing direction. And what you can do is feel like, even though you're on a board that is straight at your target, if you like, you can feel as though you are shifting right of your target whilst this stick is still behind you, i.e. when you're making a golf swing, this is going to be a golf club. And feeling a swing direction through your shift. So in where are you directing your body mass and your shift? Explore. You could even put one of these out in front of you and directly out in front of you, and then feel yourself shifting right a bit to help encourage the swing direction to the right. Anyone else?
Yeah, definitely. So the timing of the rotation is important.
Yeah.
So you're shifting mass and timing rotation. The chances are you're rotating as you're shifting mass.
Yeah.
So you're shifting mass and rotating at the same time. So you might not be able to differentiate between shift and rotation. So this is a great exercise first for recognising what shift is and recognising what rotation of your torso is, and then being able to blend them in the right way and orientate them in the direction you want for the swing. So we can shift. I don't have to have rotated yet, because if I do rotate, what I'm going to be doing is firing the upper chain. The club's going to be going. Now I'm pausing. I'm having to pause now the body. I'm having to create a braking force to let this go too early, and the arc is already underway here. And by the time I get to the golf ball with the rotation, I'm going to be fighting going left all the time. So like pull draws, pull hooks, and if I leave the face open, it's a bit of it's like a slice. But what George is demonstrating here is he's shifting, but notice his torso is not fired yet. He's not rotated that torso. It will be turning, of course, but we're accentuating this with the exercise a little bit. We're not holding it back. We're just going with the shift first, so it's passive. We're not holding anything under tension. Then we fire. And notice what he's doing. He's influencing the direction he's going to be sequencing in. So it's like throwing a ball. If you're going to throw a ball out to the right, okay. If there were no conditions, you take a step. Why would you do that? You're going to shift linearly in the direction you intend to rotate and throw the ball. If I'm not set up this way, I could go this way. This is why we tend to stand close for a draw as well. It's not just the start line of the club face or anything like that. It's more to facilitate the function of this movement. But if I'm square, I could still throw a ball over there. But now what I'm doing is I'm shifting my centre of mass in that direction. In the golf swing, it's the same thing. So you can accentuate that. That's a bit of an exercise, really, just to explore the kind of the range you can utilise. So really, just kind of, it's not an exaggeration; it's an amplification, really, of the movement to shift the swing to the right. And then, if you want to, you could stand that way to make it easier, if you like. But that might then make it a little bit more tricky to actually rotate through, because we don't want to be closing ourselves too much in respect to the direction we want to go. But we'll rotate, should I say, because you're rotating to the left hip, because the right hander a bit earlier.
So it was Johannes. You asked this. Johannes. Essentially, what we're kind of in a very condensed version saying is explore feeling a swing direction with the body.
Yeah. With
the whole body, rather than thinking about that club, because that club is going to be heavily influenced by where your body is going. So actually, get a sense of swing direction through the body as opposed to swing direction with a club head alone.
What we just did, throwing the ball lead arm, backhand, out there to the right. You can't rotate too early. So to throw the ball over there, George had to shift, and then
I felt like
there's a timing.
Yeah.
There's a timing of that release to throw the arm off the rib cage and throw the ball out there. If George rotates too early, it's going to go left.
So if I shift and rotate at the same time, pretty straight. Arguably a bit left. I think I shifted early there. Yeah. Shift and rotate at the same time, far more left.
Depends when you start to let go as well.
Yes, true.
So it's kind of, now obviously there's a golf club swinging here, so this club.
Yeah, that's the shift.
So that's probably what you're kind of doing, Johannes. And we want to explore more away. There we go. So what would that look like with a golf club? Just lead arm.
Don't want to ruin your brand new PhD.
There, so now we've got a feel of the left arm and the direction of the swing, and then both hands on the club, and then you can start to feel that direction. So referencing the kind of space your club's in, just a half swing, a three-quarter swing, feel where that is at the end, and now mirror that on the backswing. Where would that go? Where would you need to swing on the way back to facilitate that through swing? So you can, maybe your backswing's also inhibiting this swing direction. So this will help you to recognise where you need to swing the golf club to enable this swing direction to take place.
That's very true, because a lot of people who said they've tried getting a swing direction more to the right and without much success, and finding that they're just hitting pull draws rather than draws that are pushed and start right at the target, is that they're very upright in the backswing. It's very hard. Oh, you're going to have to do some super funky stuff in your swing.
You need some Matt Wolf action.
Yeah, exactly. You really do need a Matt Wolf.
I think that the tennis racket drill with your hand is a great drill, because if you showed someone swinging steep on your backswing but playing tennis with your hand on the drill, like you just don't go in that position, do you, to get top spin on a tennis racket?
So that's a drill that Craig's seen me use filming the other day. So if you just take your setup and then put your right hand, imagine your right hand is a tennis racket, and put it on the grip, the side of the grip. So that's a tennis racket. So if you were going to play now a forehand topspin using the right hand, so the right hand now, where would you go to play? That's it, and then outward and play the topspin. So you're just using that trail hand, right hand as a right-handed dominant person. You can feel the journey of the right hand. When you put that back on the club, you can start to feel how the club behaves.
Yeah.
So you're using that recognition of what you would do in another sport for the path and the release you want for this swing direction. So yeah.
And actually, yeah, forehand topspin in tennis as well is brilliant, because actually you would, if you're playing with
You shift your swing direction to the right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
you step to the right.
And you'd absolutely be on with your lead foot, and you'd be pushing and extend. Oh, there's so many similarities.
This one kind of ties into what you're talking about now, but he's just ordered a GRF as well. With the shift and stuff like that. So any suggestions on working on consistency of strike at home, if you don't have much time to get to the range, or just order a GRF waiting on delivery?
Consistency of strike. So kind of what we were touching on a minute ago with the hand path as well. You feel it using the shift. So we're actually we're shifting the golf swing with an iron this way towards the target. So now when you release, you're more on top, if you like. It's a much steeper angle of attack. But what we use as well is a divot board.
Yeah, it's in the end bay. I was just going to say that. So using some kind of True Strike, I think one of the brands is True Strike. Anything that shows you essentially a divot pattern would be good. And even if you don't have one of those,
If you have a grass range,
because he said at home, if he doesn't have the range and stuff, if you've got a garden with some turf on, then you can be kind of working on managing low point of the club on that, but on your carpet, if your family members aren't going to rip you apart for it.
Find something that's going to give you feedback, like George said. I would say a bunker is the perfect place. Okay, at your local club. If not,
says if you can't get to the range that often.
If you can't get to the range,
at home, he's saying.
Essentially, one of those.
You want something that's going to give you feedback, and then if you use an alignment, I mean, even if you haven't got one of these, use this. It's now changing its form from an alignment stick or whatever stick into a strike stick. Take your setup. That's midline of the stance, if you like. That's kind of where you want the ball. Okay, and now just strike in front. What does it feel like to strike in front? So I'm catching it on the way down, that's fine, I'm still striking in front. Now further in front. So now I'm getting some sense spatially of what I'm having to do now to actually create that later strike. So on a mat, on a rug, something that's not going to really damage the floor, and step in. Be careful that you don't move this further back in your stance to make it easier. Okay, so it's kind of mid-stance. I'd say maybe if your ball was mid-stance, have this just slightly behind the ball just to give you a little bit of leeway. And then in the air, just swing back, and then you're going to feel what George was talking about earlier, a shift.
Yeah.
And then the timing of that
It's
release.
just got the board coming through, has it?
Yeah, he's just waiting for it to be delivered.
See on the board, you'll recognise that movement then to shift that low point
Yeah.
forward.
If you can turn it around this way, it's easier, Marcus, because the camera doesn't. I can't zoom out on YouTube. That's
If
it.
you do it on the board, you'll feel where you need to be.
We're going to have to go in 5 minutes, guys. So if you've got any questions,
Yeah, probably got time for one more after this,
probably
guys.
one more, fire 'em in. So here. Okay, so I struck here. I still struck in front, the ground in front, but I can go even further. This is why probably just at the front edge of the ball. So if the ball's in the centre, so GRF, you've got that ball in the middle here. Okay, it's a magnet, it's actually for using with the system, but it's a great indicator of your mid stance. So have that in line with the back edge of the ball, and now we're going to strike in front, and then further in front. Okay, you could move it a fraction further back if you like. So you'd be because the stick's slightly is protruding, it's off the floor, so it's not flat. So it's by moving it back, that's acting as if the line's really here. Okay, because of the height of it. So just accounting for the height of the stick. Or what I do is get some tape on a rug or a mat. Just put some tape so it's flat. So then you're not going to strike that on the way down. And then getting used to, like Danny said, feeling it with the board. Notice how we have to use the board to get the lay to strike. So you can get an accentuation, you can get a kind of an accentuated feel of that shift, like similar to what George was saying with the swing direction. So you're creating feedback loops. You're developing more body awareness to essentially optimise your movement pattern. So you're executing your movement with more precision, and it's much more aligned to your intention of how you'd like to strike the golf ball. So great home training. You start to just get a feel for this. If you've gone, I'd say maybe go onto your pitching area when you go back to the course and do some pitching and use this for pitching first and see if you can get that same feeling with the pitching. Or if you're on the range, just start off with a pitching wedge and then gradually step up to your full swing and see if you can get that same feeling. I would go into 3/4 swings, but be careful, you're going to create more of a strike with the ground, so we don't want to be damaging our floors, but definitely start to increase the swing a little bit. So you can get a feeling of when you're actually letting the whole thing go, the levers.
Also, it's always an interesting one about people that want consistency in any aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Right? Because what we've got here is a very flat surface, right? And we want consistency of strike. And I know, of course, when we're sometimes limited by the environment in which we can practice. Of course, if we're at home, we're going to be limited. But if you can get to the range and you've got mats like these, roll up a towel, roll up a jumper, whatever, stick it under and hit some shots when the ball is above your feet or you're above the ball and things like that, and see how you need to adapt to get a nice strike on it. And it's also going to have influence on ball flight as well. But I think the more you practice in representative ways that this golf course is going to present to you, then you're going to get, because I know what people mean, they mean consistency of outcome. They want a good strike. But actually, to get the consistent outcome, you need to be very adaptable with the action. Because this golf ball is very rarely going to give you this same scenario out on a golf course.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's brilliant, because what you're attuning yourself to strike location with the ground, and you're having to adapt with these moving lights because it's forcing you to shift more. So, for example, we're on a Zen green stage at the moment, and we have the ability here to change the lies, which is ultimately challenging the body to manage its balance in order to move to create the strike point on that uneven lie. So I would be practicing off downward lies. You might find if you're on an uphill lie, you might be catching the ground. You might catch the ground or top the ball or thin it, and then when you go to the downhill lie, you definitely catch the ground before maybe because it's bouncing off. So you've got to shift more to get the downward angle of attack on a downward lie. So maybe loft up a little bit to like a 9-iron and see if you can de-loft the golf club by shifting with the downhill lie and striking the ball and the turf on the downward angle of attack on a downhill lie. That's a really good way of practicing that. That's great suggestion, George. And then going on an uphill lie, which will then it throws the opposite challenge. Now you've got to kind of be able to shift on an uphill line and get across. So brilliant suggestion.
All right, let's finish with this one, Danny, and let's fire it to Danny. I just said Danny twice. When you're at the top of your backswing, what do you feel to start the downswing?
I feel.
Where is the top of the backswing, Danny? Where is the
Yeah, where is it?
What do I feel, or what you should feel?
Yeah, so I guess it's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it? Because everyone feels something different.
What
but-
you feels.
I guess he's saying, like you feed the load of the wrist, right? The transition.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even think of it. I try not
You
to think
can't-
of it
you
as a
can't
top of
possibly
backswing.
answer that.
Anyway, I just to pick up on the framing of the question, I don't think of it as a top of a backswing or start of a downswing. I think of it far more as a change of direction, because
Yeah.
I think that's actually what's at play there. You're
Exactly.
changing direction, and that's what's dictating the backswing.
So what's changing the direction?
Yeah.
Pressure shift, weight shift. What we were going through earlier about that change of direction, that shift, and to set up a swing direction and load into the ground, ready to push, and all the
I
other
would-
good things. But
I would see it even simpler, just thinking we've got that shot in mind, and the moment I start to move towards that shot is when that club starts to change direction.
Love that.
So rather than thinking about this, it's more right, shot's there. As soon as the quicker I move towards a target, that's going to then change the length of that backswing. So as soon as I start to move to the left, this is going to start to
Earlier,
away.
maybe not
Yeah.
quicker,
Yeah.
quicker, but thinking maybe earlier timing wise.
Yeah.
You're swinging the club back, and then as you start to shift the body earlier, this is then gonna
But
follow.
again,
So you-
when you do it, just have a play around with it. Just swing back, go earlier that way, and just see what happens, and then maybe delay. Just play around with that feeling, but not consciously thinking, how do I move this club? That's the danger.
Because essentially what you've just asked us in another form is where's the top of your backswing if you're throwing a ball? How do you change direction if you're throwing a ball? Actually throw a ball, and what do you recognise as your change of direction? What do you sense? Now put a club in your hand, and now in the air, make a similar swing, and what do you recognise as the change of direction? So you're using these primitive patterns which are inherent in all these movements for a kinetic chain, to access that kinetic chain. What are you experiencing to change your direction with your movement? Because essentially that's what you're doing. You're moving that way and then you're moving this way. But there's a sequence. So how do you recognise the sequence? Throw a ball and then just be mindful of what is actually. So from a static,
so
without moving
I'll
our
go
feet.
goal stance
Yeah,
without
goal.
moving.
Yeah. So what is changing?
I always have my little forward press.
And then put a club in your hands, and then swinging back on a kind of baseball kind of swing with a kind of that kind of action, so it's elevated around your body. And what did you feel with your legs, with your hips, with your torso, with your feet? What happened at ground level?
I feel a stretch.
And also in relation to the club head, where's the club head or the weight of the club head in relation to this? So you're getting an awareness of where the club is in relation to the sequence. And then on the ground level, what's that like then? Ground level with the club head. So using natural actions just to refer to develop some kind of reference or some recognition, should I say, to apply into your golf swing. Because you already possess that level of awareness, all we've got to do is adapt it for your golf swing.
Yeah.
So you've already got those movements, and the body's it performs them naturally. So tap into that same level tap into that body awareness to introduce it into your golf swing.
Desperate to hit a shot.
All right, let's finish it with a good shot.
I'm going to finish off
A
on a
dump
good
shot.
one.
Show us those primitive patterns.
Oh,
Oh. All right.
guys,
That's
thank
the
you very
card,
much
not
for
me.
watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. We've got to get off now to the curry. That's waiting before the curry house shuts. It's getting towards 9 PM our time, so we've got to make a quick dash. So thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your questions, guys. Drop more questions below. That's going to give us some food for thought for future Q&As. We can lead on to the next one with the questioning. Guys, Craig, thanks a lot behind the camera. As always, guys, Danny,
Thanks, guys.
George, brilliant, fantastic. See you soon.